Would a Neanderthal theoretically be able to function in modern society? Assuming they were able to somehow adapt to the culture shock, would their brains be good enough to perform everyday tasks in a modern world? Most likely. We have no evidence that they were significantly dumber than humans. The reason they died out was mostly the fact they never needed to develop ranged weaponry, as they had superior strength, so had no real need. I don't think we know enough about how our own brains work to postulate on how a Neanderthal's brain might work. Likely yes. They had slightly larger brains. On average. One issue may have been that they may have been more paranoid or anxious than modern humans and less tolerant of working in large groups. Sure, they could even be lawyers. Rip Phil Hartman. Function? They get elected to national office. You ever see them people with the really pronounced brows over deep eye sockets? Typical Neanderthal brain was rather larger than ours. We believe now they had religion, art, family ties, made clothes and tools, and were not inferior to modern humans in intelligence. A Neanderthal baby brought up in modern society should have no trouble fitting in. Yes, they would be able to integrate just fine into society after getting over the learning curve. I have an uncle with 98 more Neanderthal DNA than the rest of the population according to a DNA test he did. He was a brain surgeon with sleep apnea, thick bones, obese BMI despite not being overweight for most of his life, lifetime involvement in combat sports but no broken bones, etc. Watch Encino Man. Your world frightens and confuses me. Would their brains be good enough to perform everyday tasks in a modern world? Have you seen some of the Homo sapiens we've got kicking about today? Very likely. Neanderthals weren't dumb at all. Some theories say they were even smarter than us. But they weren't as social, that combined with their bigger size when food diminished led to their extinction. But while they would function, I think they would have a hard time adapting to our diet. I seem to be managing okay. Thanks for asking. Please see the documentary Encino Man. Put a Trump flag outside their house and no one would suspect anything. I'm sure we can find a job for them. I work with plenty of them. Robert Sawyer is a great sci-fi writer who wrote a fun book called Hominids that plays around with this question. When I wanted to be a writer, an ambition I abandoned after struggling through writing about 3 pages of a short story, I thought it would be great to write a novel about Neanderthals. The plot: an alien race visit ancient Earth, collect one of the last surviving groups of Neanderthals, and take them away to a place of safety. Now they reappear with the descendants of the Neanderthals, and we see how they fit into modern society. I'm sure I work with a few. It's definitely a thing. Winking face. I would think not. Despite what most people are saying about them having large brains, they were likely different to ours. If you imagine how difficult it is for certain humans to function in society because they have learning disabilities, and then consider how finite those differences are neurologically, I would imagine a Neanderthal's brain, which is structurally different to ours, would work very differently. Good stories on this: Isaac Asimov, The Ugly Little Boy, Harry Turtledove, and So to Bed. Look around you. Do you really think that everyone around you is smarter than a Neanderthal? Some of the people I live around can't even think through having their headlights on when driving. At night, dusk, dawn. Haven't figured out what turn signals are for. And get confused by intersections, and you somehow think Neanderthals would be worse? I'll argue they wouldn't be worse. Considering most humans today wouldn't survive in their time, it's not a stretch. Haven't you seen the Geico commercials? Would a Neanderthal theoretically be able to function in modern society? Not only could they function, I'm pretty sure they could get elected to Congress. MTG says hello. I would think so. I've met some dumbass MFERS that couldn't survive a week in the wilderness. That takes brains. You can't do much carpentry with your bare hands. And you can't do much thinking with your bare brain. Human exceptionalism, if it exists at all, is based on the development of our thinking tools over time, as embedded in our culture. An ancient Homo sapien wouldn't be able to function in modern society unless they were raised within that time period. I imagine the same goes for Neanderthals. They seem to fare okay in those Geico commercials. I encounter them every day on the subway. I am relocating to my new house in a few days. Could you recommend a Neanderthal-run honest and cautious moving company in the south of France? I have some big and heavy pieces of furniture. And of course, no elevator to move them to the third floor. I believe they made him president for a while. Makes lazy Trump voters reference. Absolutely. One even became president. If a Neanderthal infant was picked up by a clueless, childless modern-day couple then raised up like any human child, they would grow up and live their lives like any other human being, and neither them nor society would suspect a thing. Mostly. Yes. They would hate cities though. Imagine your social anxiety, but you are even less social. I'm not sure. They didn't have the same capacity for language as humans do. We know at least with language production. But we aren't sure neurologically too, though that is likely. They would probably need guardianships. I do all right, thanks. A workmate of mine is coping very well. I think their voice sounded a good bit different. More high pitch. IDK if they'd be able to speak every single human language the same way we do. Scientists apparently now thinking they invented several things we still use as I understand it. They might be generally though of as weird looking and sounding, but there's complete evidence they mated with humans, although Neanderthal men I think had some kinda chromosome problem when mating with human women like horses and donkeys, so there's that as well. IDK. They might. There's every chance they'd do just fine, but people would just think but he's an odd fellow. No nut, simply because their immune system is far weaker than ours. The common flu wipes them all out. If modern society where Roe vs. Wade wasn't overturned. Have you seen a MAGA rally? Why do you seem to imply that they were less intelligent than us? Not always the more intelligent species wins out. See the discussion about brain size etc. in the comment section here. Half our population can't function in modern society. You don't really need to understand how things work to be able to use them. Monkeys in tourist areas have learned to steal handbags, get cash out of them, and use vending machines to get treats. Chimps use smartphones. Elephants paint pictures. Dogs press buttons to talk with their owners. Children can press a light switch without any knowledge about power stations or networks. No reason why a Neanderthal couldn't do the same. Most Homo sapiens wouldn't even notice a difference. Not even looks wise. Had a neighbor who looked exactly like Neanderthal recreations, and he was a truck driver. Scoundrel too if it matters. Ozzy did okay, and he's mostly Neanderthal. Probably, and the probably would have filed a class action lawsuit against Geico around 2006. I'm pretty sure I work with a few. I mean, Joe Rogan can do it. JK, mad respect for Mr. Rogan. There is at least one functional Neanderthal in his Congress. If in doubt, check MTG without makeup.